Hello, Facebook Live. How are you tonight? Melanie and Leah coming to you here live on my personal page. This is the first time you've ever caught me live in your whole entire life. Please let me know that you're a first-time viewer. I would love to welcome you to my Facebook Live world. If you tend to watch me quite a little bit, then I hope that you would say hi because we're friends and stuff. And if you're watching the replay, then you can hashtag the finish line and I'll see that you are watching the replay. So I have a really awesome live stream for us tonight because there's going to be a lot of teaching in this, and it's going to be a really great opportunity to get some coaching, some mentoring from me directly on my page for free. If at any point while I'm speaking, you feel like it would be good for someone to hear this, please share. It means the world to me. And honestly, there is no greater way for people to connect with me than through people sharing. So I thank you in advance. If you do, it means the world to me, and let me know that you've shared so I can thank you, please. So this is a really important time of the year. And for a lot of my life, this is a time where I experienced feeling a lot of failure. It felt like unless I had done every single thing that I was supposed to do, I had failed around this time of year. And the saddest thing is I'd make these lists around this time of year and check in on them at the end of the year and not look at them much throughout the entire year at all. And so this was the time of year where I would make big, grand, sweeping decisions and goals and wishes for the upcoming year. And it would also be in the same breath the time where I would realize that none of the dreams, wishes, aspirations, promises I had made the year before actually came to fruition. And so it was one of those difficult times of year where trying to motivate myself on the back end of realizing I haven't done what I said I was going to do. And so this time of year always had this like bittersweet energy until I changed the way I led my life. And I want to share with you a little bit about that today because something really fun is happening in my brand, and it starts with the conversation I'm going to have with you today. So the first thing I want to wish you, for all of you who celebrate Christmas, I hope you had the most beautiful Christmas, whether you were by yourself, whether you were with your family, friends, your partner. I just hope you had a beautiful day and an opportunity to be with yourself and take in whatever it was that you needed this holiday season. So we've still got so much time left to go. Technically, for those of you who celebrate Christmas, this is the second day of Christmas. We've got 12 whole days of this magic. And so the goal for me right now is to just create a feeling of empowerment and joy and excitement for you to take yourself through the finish line of this year and into the beginning of the next year. Because I think a lot of times we imagine like the finish line is January 31st, because then we're starting a new year. But most of us still have most of us still have New Year's parties and family gatherings all the way through the first few days of January anyway. And so there's a lot that needs to happen, and we're not near the end yet. There's a few more days of partying. There's a few more days of introspection. There's a few more days that can really set up your next year in a different way. And so usually around this time of year is where we start seeing people flooding everything with New Year conversations. 2023 is going to be our year. It's all about to happen in 2023. We've already kind of made a cross on 2022, like it's the end. 2023 is coming. Let's bank on that because it's easier to get excited about the sparkly new beginning than to go through the finish line. And this finish line energy, it's very representative of so many things in our lives. It's not just about the finish line as we know it here at the end of a year. I found that as I've become better and better at crossing finish lines in my life has changed. And so anytime the end approaches is when the results come in. And for a lot of us, if we're not happy with those results, we'd rather just unplug and never find out what the score was. It's like, well, I'm not winning, so I don't want to know how bad I'm losing. I didn't do everything I wanted to do, and so I don't know if I actually want to find out how good or bad I've been doing. And this, for me, I find is an unfortunate thing, because ever since I've started going through the finish line in my life, I've actually found out what I'm capable of and what the results actually were, and to make peace with some things were amazing and some pieces weren't. And what do I want to do differently? And it's through these introspective moments, these moments of reflection and contemplation on a year past, that I've been able to do better for myself every single year. And this is a skill that I was not always very good at. I would pull the plug right when relationships looked like they weren't going to work. I would pull the plug right when it felt like I was going to experience pain or disappointment. I would pull the plug if a launch didn't feel like it was going well, or a career didn't look like it was going well. I pulled the plug on things before I had to ever find out that they failed. And in doing that, I lost a lot of opportunities to find strength in me. I lost opportunities to actually find out what I was made of and be like, whoa, I can do big things. I can do things that are scary. I can do this. I always had this story of like, well, if I hadn't have pulled the plug, if I wouldn't have given up, maybe I would have actually done the thing. If I wouldn't have. And it was very difficult to improve on something that I had absolutely no idea how good or bad or whatever it was that I was doing. It was always like, it could have been better, but I pulled the plug. So what did I learn? Won't pull the plug next time. Pull the plug again. Well, what did I learn? Maybe if I wouldn't have pulled the plug, I would have succeeded. So what did I learn? Don't pull the plug next time. So what did I learn? I learned that if I wouldn't have pulled the plug, maybe I would have succeeded. So what do I do? Maybe I don't pull the plug next time. There's no learning in that. And so it felt like every year was this loop, this predictable loop of, I know what I'm going to wish for is the same thing I wished for last year. And I know I'm probably not going to hit it because it's the way I do everything, but it's still the thing I want. And so I'll wish for it next year over and over and over again. And nothing really changed. And when I started really looking at life the way I'm going to talk to you about in this live stream, I started seeing life differently. Like if I played the game my best and I was willing to succeed or fail, and I was willing to get as close to success as possible and actually see how close I came, then next year I could play against my best score and actually win, or come even closer to succeeding and play against my best score again. And I became a stronger person. I became a more calm person. I became a more peaceful person in accepting things and bettering myself over a longer stretch of time. There's like a mindset about the new year that's like a reset button. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but in my life, I used to do this a lot. I was like, okay, I'm wiping the blackboard clean. This is a new beginning. This is a new year. This is my year now. Now it's for me this year, now. But what about the past year and all the things that I tried? Oh, that year didn't count. It doesn't matter because I failed, but this year I'm going to succeed. And although it felt good in the beginning of the new year to see things like that, what ended up happening was when I looked back in hindsight at my life, it felt like, what's the point really of putting all this pressure on a new year if I know how it's going to go? And if I just discredit years like that, eventually it's very hard to figure out why we're doing what we're doing anyway. Why not just be content instead of just being disappointed all the time? So the opportunity for actual being proud of ourselves and doing our best and celebrating that best, all that is wiped when we cross off the old year that wasn't perfect and go into the new year. Like, let's just turn the page. It doesn't matter. Wipe the blackboard clean, try again, start over. 2023 is my year. What about 2022? First of all, it's not over yet. And second of all, what does that set in motion for 2023 is another year that only lasts as long as the excitement does. And then, so there's different parts of us that need to come together in order to create an extraordinary year. There's different things we need to think, feel, be, do. There's things that are important in order to create an extraordinary year. And it takes focus and actual space to consider those things. But life is going by so fast. We think, oh yeah, I'm going to set time this year. This year, I'm really going to set time. I'm going to do the things. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to plan it out. And then boom, next thing you know, it's March. You're like, oops, 2024. Like that's the vibe. And so in order to have a year that feels like at the end of it, you're like, whoa, I did this. I created this. This is incredible. And I've learned so much. And there's so many things I wouldn't do again. And next year is going to be greater because I'm looking at this as a whole and I can see that I went through the finish line with it and it all counts instead of start over. So I want to invite you on this live stream to kind of relax into the conversation and start to contemplate with me what your life might be like if from this point forward in your life, you actually look at every year as a building block. Not as a thing that expires at midnight on New Year's Eve, but rather a building block for your life. That every year, if you can take away 1, 2, 10, 20 extraordinary things, memories, milestones, lessons, if you can take away one thing in the entire year, that year's not a wash. It's a building block. And the idea is to complete the year with intentionality so that you can extract everything that was good and learn for yourself. What was freaking brilliant that I can celebrate myself for? Because the end of this year is all about celebration. The finish line energy is always about celebration if we allow ourselves to cross it. If not, it's dismissal. Dismissal, so there's no disappointment. There's always some celebration if we're willing to look. So what's the celebration? And then also, what wasn't great? What are the lessons? And if that's a wash to not experience disappointment, then there's an immaturity in the entire game. There's something that's missing. We're always going to make the same mistakes because we're not willing to look at what we've actually learned. And so if we're willing to sit with the lessons we've learned and say, whoa, this, maybe this wasn't a huge year of celebration, but holy pickles, Harry Potter, look at these lessons I've learned. I would never do that again. I would do this so differently. Had I known what I know now, for sure, this would not have happened this way. I would have done this way. But what if we don't take a moment to contemplate? Then those things just become something we would have learned had we taken the time to think about it. But we don't. And the last part is like, what do I want to do different? And then it's the contemplation for 2023, the next level, the next year that's coming based on everything I realized was great about this year and everything I realized wasn't great about this year. Now what? But how can we even create a now what without the two first pieces? We just end up doing the same thing over and over again. And if you look at your life in the years where everything felt like it didn't change much and the years just strung together, something a lot of those years have in common is not a lot of time to think about them. Life just flies by too fast and you just don't make the time. It's not that we don't have the time, it's that we don't make the time because we take the time to do all kinds of other things. Now, this is the end of the year. And for some of you, you're just like, you know what? I deserve a break. I don't want to do any more work. Either I'm tired, I don't have the energy, I don't feel like it. But I want to talk to you about the difference between having conscious time off and unplugging your energy entirely. So what I truly believe about this time of year is that it's an incredibly amazing opportunity to connect 2 years. I see it almost like a train. We have a train of our life, and every year we add on another segment to this train. And the last few days of the year, and maybe the first few days of the next year, they're the connectors. And if we don't actually take the time to connect the 2 years, we're just constantly sending out trains that aren't connected to the whole, and we don't improve as human beings the way we could if we just paid attention to what we've done. It's not about there's something wrong with me. It's not about I need to fix myself. It's not about I'm not good enough. It's about I'm given all these incredible pockets of magic and pearls of wisdom that I'm just not taking the time to look at. And I'm making mistakes again, but just because I'm not taking the time to look. I've collapsed time around how quickly lessons anchor for me because I'm willing to actually make a mistake and look at it and not make a mistake and go, I can't look at that. Let's focus on all the good things. Let's just not look at it. Let's just not think about it, to actually look, because there are years where there are more celebrations than lessons. And there are years when there are more lessons than celebrations. There are years where it seems to be about the same of both, but there's nothing right or wrong about either of that. That's incredible for me either way. And so this is not a time necessarily to work hard in order to get these breakthroughs that I want to share with you. As a matter of fact, if you wanted, you could just lean back with me and take this all in and just contemplate for an hour a day instead of watching Netflix or instead of scrolling through social media mindlessly. Maybe you could take an hour for yourself to actually think about you and your life and what this year has brought for you. My intention with what's coming up next is to really create a space for you to anchor in this year so that next year is a masterpiece. That's my intention. That's what I really want for you. And so you wouldn't have to do much work if you don't feel like it. You could just receive and think, because the crazy thing about really being conscious of thoughts that serve us is that they work their own kind of magic. Most of the time, our issue is not that we're not doing enough, is that we're thinking about things that don't create change within us. We think, but we think about the things we should have done, the things we could be doing, or the things we'll do tomorrow. We're not thinking deep, insightful, life rebuilding thoughts. We're not actually reflecting, contemplating life in a way that strengthens us and makes us learn. We numb that part so much, especially around the holidays, unfortunately, with the overeating and the over drinking and the over celebrating and the over everything. There isn't much time to think. And the amount of people who say, I love the holidays, but I'm so excited for them to be over so I can relax. You can take a moment daily for you and change the way these holidays end for you. And so what I want to talk to you about today is the finish line. And this is going to be a masterclass. It's the last masterclass of 2022. And so in this live stream, there's going to be great information. I'm going to be sharing some beautiful things with you, where even if you didn't do the masterclass, you could at least have something to chew on in this live stream. But what I really would love is to invite you into this masterclass. It's going to be 3 full days with a Q&A, or not 3 full days, 3 full modules with a Q&A, 3 days in a row, starting tomorrow. And to really go through the end of this year, it's going to be an hour or so, a little over an hour every day. So very manageable. What I want to really have you experience is, what does it look like when I live the end of this year with myself in mind as well? Myself, my business, my heart, my friendships, my relationships, my goals, my dreams. What happens if I take a minute for those before I start making new wishes? Because if you're anything like me, the way I used to do it before I did it like this, it just used to be wishing and then looking at which wishes hadn't come true and then wishing for more. There wasn't much opportunity for things to land. And so there's something new that happened in my world in 2022, something that I hadn't done in a very long time, is I created a membership. It's a low-cost membership, and it doesn't have a cancellation policy. Like, you just cancel whenever you want. And so you can stay in there for a month, 2 months, 5 months, forever. It's like you decide, you go as you go. And I create incredible masterclasses that end up going in there. And sometimes it's just that you have longer access to things, where something usually lasts a shorter amount of time. In there, you have longer, or it's that in there for lesser price, you get access for a shorter time. But it's a really fun place to be immersed in my world, to really experience the things that I talk about, and to not worry about any kind of contractual agreement or how long you're supposed to be in there. It's literally $111 a month, and you stay as long as you want. When you're done, you're done. Now, I've decided to do a masterclass in there for all the people that are in this E3 membership. There has been a shocking amount of demand for it to be available outside of the masterclass for people, or the membership, for people who are like, I know it's not a lot. I know $111 is not a lot, but I don't really want to have to be in something every month, which I understand is just normally, if I create something like this, they're $555. So you have this choice. You can purchase the finish line for $555. It'll go in a closed Facebook group, and you'll have access until December of next year. So it gives you more time. Or you can join E3, be there for this masterclass. It'll be in there for 3 months, then it'll be taken down, but it'll only cost you $111. And if you decide you want to stay longer because it's good stuff in there, that's great. And if you're complete, you get to go. So you get to choose. $555, you have access until December of next year, or $111, you go as part of the E3 membership, and you can stay for however long you want. And if you're done after the first month, that's also perfect. So just to take that into consideration as you're listening to me speak here. What I would love to do is to have the Alpha team share the animation for this, so that you can see what the vibe is for this finish line masterclass. And then I'll keep going with the information. Again, if you feel like someone needs to hear this, please share. So that is the energy for the finish line. My feeling is this life that we want to succeed at, this life where we chase our dreams, it doesn't matter unless we let ourselves catch the things we've done. Like, you can chase a feeling your entire life, but if you don't actually let it land, what's the point? What we live for are these moments where we actually let our life take our breath away. We need a landing pad for that. There's got to be a moment where we're like, this is the moment where I give myself the gift of reflection for who I've been, for what I've done, for what I've accomplished, for where I've been, for what I've lived, for what I've seen, for what I've overcome, what I've conquered, where I've thrived, where I've learned, where I've fallen and gotten back up again, before I just tack on another year that's going to fly by. It will be this fast until we're back here next year. A blink of an eye before we're weighing up 2023 and whether we think we were good enough or whether we're making other dreams for 2024. It's my desire with the work I do on this planet that you live a full life, a life that's beyond what you thought you could do, that you live more in a life than most people live in a decade, because you're aware and you're willing to look, to feel, to listen, to taste, to touch, to experience your life fully, and to give yourself a moment for it to have been enough and to really look at it. So we're coming now, we're dwindling, the year's dwindling in the most beautiful way. And there are so many opportunities now for it to mean something. If you've been in my life for a while, you know I'm a meaning-making machine. In my world, if it doesn't mean anything, it doesn't matter. And so I make sure that I don't make very difficult things mean more than they need to, and that I don't make beautiful things mean less than they could. I make sure that the meaning I give things helps me become a better person, not self-deprecating until I feel like I need to do more for performative reasons instead of for my life to be happy. There are times where literally I have not needed to do much at all in order to feel so accomplished and proud of myself. And there are other times where I have done the biggest, boldest, wildest things. And it was hard for me to even realize what I'd done. And so life is nuanced. There's so much depth. There's so much that we don't take the time to live and to think about. And often, and this is the sad thing, is people only take the time to think at the end, like the real end. They look back at their life, they look back at their youth, they look back at who they were or what they almost did and how close they came. And a lot of times people just wish they'd taken more time to be proud of what they had before they went on the chase for something more. So what if we let ourselves do that every single year? This is what the finish line is going to be about. Now, the way I bring this forward is I have 3 archetypes in my brand that I like to talk about. 3 ways of being: the boss energy, the goddess energy, the badass energy. So the boss is the money maker. The badass is the one who does the things. And the goddess is like the divinity within you. The one that's just worthy because you were born worthy and nothing's changed. And how to actually experience and feel your life in the most beautiful way. And all 3 of these identities matter so much. It's how I've built my entire business. And I want to share something with you, because as I approach the end of this year, I also get to look at what was great about this year. What did I learn about this year? And I've really seen, I've been doing this personal development work now for myself for the last decade. I started an online business with it in like 2016. Alpha Femme was created in 2017. It's been a wild ride for me. And when I look at each year, I can tell which year was which year in the last decade, and I can't do that before. The first 25 years of my life, it's very difficult for me to tell you which year is which year based on me. I would be able to tell based on external circumstances, like what house I was living in. But I wouldn't have been able to tell you this was the year that I felt this way. This is the year that I was focusing on this. I wouldn't be able to tell you that. But in the last decade, I can. I can tell you what each year represented to me because it was real, and I led with my real focus. There are years where I was much more focused on masculine energetics. There are years where I was much more focused on feminine energetics. There are years I was focused on balance. There's years it was about forgiveness, and there's years it was about evolution and growth over a lifetime, and there's years it was about celebration, and there's years, every year had a word and a message and an angle and a way, and then did I actually live in alignment with that year? And so this past year had a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions. This year for me was very filled with emotions. And it started on the tail end of the year before. And I really wanted to model to the world how much energy has so much to do with life. That even if you have very little strategy, that even if you have a very whimsical plan, you can do extraordinary things if you let yourself feel and you don't unplug from your feelings. I needed that kind of year for myself. In order to make it through all the things that we're going through in my life, this is a year of feeling. I didn't pull the plug on any feelings. I felt them all, felt like a roller coaster, but I let myself deeply celebrate the things that were extraordinary. And I let myself deeply grieve the things that were painful. And I let myself deeply feel the things that made me angry. And I made myself deeply feel the things that made me happy and grateful. And it was a full year. But I'm feeling like this next year has a little more structure in it. And I'm excited for that. I think the last time I felt a desire for this was 2019. And so we're bringing back the archetypes, and I'm excited to run all the programs of this year with these 3 archetypes in mind, and how these 3 energies govern everything I truly believe in, and how I've gotten here with these 3 archetypes: the goddess, the badass, the boss. Because even going through the finish line, there's 3 ways that you're going to cross that line. There's one way you're going to cross the line thinking you can't unplug because there's so much you've got to do. You can't unplug because this is the time where you've got to be launching one last thing and you've got to work really hard. Or, this is the time of year where it's beautiful or it's sad, depending on how you're feeling. But the beauty is this trifecta when you feel and experience and live and be all 3. Alpha Femme for me was a brand that I created so that women could be completely empowered within themselves to take their own life by the horns and to lead themselves. She who leads herself. That's what Alpha Femme is about. And in leadership, we've got to take care of our finances. In leadership, we've got to take care of our word. And in leadership, we've got to take care of our heart. And this is really what I want to bring back at the forefront, starting now. And so this finish line is going to be with every day. How do you cross the finish line in your boss energy? How do you cross the finish line in your badass energy? And how do you cross the finish line in your goddess energy? A lot of times at the finish line, people pull the plug because they don't want to fail. They don't want to see the year end with a failure. And so if they unplug at the finish line, it doesn't look like they failed. It just looked like if they would have sold something more before the end of the year, maybe they would have ... And this is not about working hard, because we're also going to talk about feminine energetics. And we have been taught, for most of us in life, that you're supposed to work hard. That's what you're supposed to do. If you want to make money, you've got to work hard. And for most of my life, that's what I did. I worked really hard and I didn't make much money. When I understood that it's more so working in alignment, meaning there's things I know I've got to do. And if I don't procrastinate those and let my badass do nothing, and if I actually utilize the power of the badass energy and say, here's what I got to do, and I set a structure for myself, and I get to flow in feminine energy inside of that structure. And there isn't so much constriction or fighting against myself. When I believe in my own word to myself and I just flow inside of that word, magic starts to happen. And so what's beautiful about the finish line is that the energy and who you've been and what you've done. And especially for those of you who are entrepreneurs, just out of curiosity, who here is an entrepreneur where having an online presence makes a difference in your world? Like your business is impacted by social media at all. So you have had an entire year of building connections, an entire year of launching products or services, an entire year of showcasing testimonials or client satisfaction or selling or demonstrating how your product works. You've had an entire year of that. You may not want to do one more launch, But if you close the doors energetically, who says there wasn't magic at the finish line? Just often we're like, yeah, but what if I keep my energy open? What if I dare to believe that there are still people contemplating working with me and they don't? Then I'll be disappointed. And I don't want the holidays to be about that. I don't want the finish line to be about that. So I would rather not have the opportunity for people to buy. That way, if they don't, it will have been because I took the opportunity away, which will make me feel so much better. It's more comfortable, but it doesn't make you stronger. So many years I've found that at the finish line is when people come out of the woodworks and say, you know what, I want to do this one thing with you. I've been waiting all year to do this. I'm going to do it for myself now. When I haven't even sold something, like right around, Christmas or right around New Year's, people will be like, okay, I'm ready. I want to purchase this one thing, or I want to set myself up for this, or I want to do the AFE with you, or whatever it is that they want to do. I've been thinking about it all year. Maybe I even asked for it for Christmas. I asked my spouse for this for Christmas, and I decided if I didn't get it, I'd buy for it myself. It's my present for me. This happens. But I've had to learn to keep the cart energetically open. I want to help you go through the finish line of your life with trust. Sometimes, yeah, it's about a little bit of work if that's what you feel like doing. But other times it's just about not pulling the plug, trusting in the inertia. You've had your foot on the gas the entire year. What I'm saying is don't put your foot on the brakes. Just lift your feet off the gas pedal and see how far that carries you. You've built momentum, you've built inertia. And if you're not so afraid to find out how far that'll take you, if you don't feel the need to put the brakes on just so you don't get disappointed, you might be so surprised by what happens. You can just tap into this masterclass with me over the next 3 days and just receive. My ideal thing for you to do would be for you to just receive and contemplate the things we're going to talk about. Because this is not the only finish line you're going to have. The finish line will present itself again every month. The finish line will present itself with every product launch or program launch. The finish line will present itself with every ending of a relationship in your life. The finish line will present itself over and over and over again. And so as we become better with crossing that line, it actually makes a difference everywhere. Not just here now, but everywhere. We've got to start somewhere. And the greater the meaning, the easier the integration. This is the most important finish line. It's the one of the year. How do you end the year? Well, what a lot of us do is we unplug at the end. Boop, 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 boop. And then when it's time to come into the new year, we've got all these things unplugged. And now before we can even start, instead of walking into the new year with the wind in your hair and slow music and standing ovations, we're walking into the new year with a whole mess to clean and things to replug because our energy's been off and we're a little numb and very bloated and kind of a mess. And it takes time to get back in the vibe of things instead of using the inertia and the momentum of an extraordinary end of year. And this doesn't mean you can't still have all the fun things that you want to do, like you get to live the end of your year the way you want to live it, but is there a space for you to actually utilize the power of your mind, your heart, your spirit, and give yourself the greatest gift there is, which is to give yourself your own attention and listen to yourself, talk to yourself, listen to yourself, and learn from yourself. This is where the magic really lies. So I've taken a few notes here because there are some things I wanted to make sure I said to you here. Okay, so there's something I want to read for you because I feel like this is the transition into the next part. I think there's no way to hear this too many times. I know that many of you probably have heard this before. This is also a great time to share if you feel like someone needs to hear this conversation. There's so many people beating themselves up around the end of the year, or so many people just trying to skyrocket through the new year, right into 2023. They're already doing the thing where they're like, 2023 is my year. They're not looking at themselves. They're headed for another identical year. People who've given themselves a real hard time because they tried something real hard this year and it didn't work. Not the way they wanted it to. And they're really down in the dumps. I really want to help you see something. To me, this gave me my life back. This part I'm going to share it with you now. I don't know why we do this to ourselves, where we decide that the culmination of our life should fit into a year for it to be a success or a failure. That at the beginning of a year or on New Year's Eve, we'll sit with ourselves and say, okay, here are my New Year's resolutions. This is what I need to do this year. I need to write a book. I need my body to look like this. I need to find the partner of my dreams. I need to learn how to become a cook. I need to have my entire house completely spotless from top to bottom. I need to change my entire closet. I need to have all these things. And at the end of the year, when you sit with them and you look through them and you can check them off, it boils down to checking them off or not. And if you didn't, you failed. Who decides we fail after 1 year? There are things that are transferable into 2023 without it ever being considered a failure. There are things you got 25% done, 50% done, 90% done. But when you cross your list off, it'll just be like, yes or no. What if the actual cycle for some of the things that you've put in a 1 year cycle was meant to be 4 years? And as long as you're 25% complete, you're actually right on track. But you decided you were supposed to do all of that in the next year, and you missed the mark, and now you see it as failure. And so I want to talk to you about timing. I'm going to read you a little ditty about pineapples. So this is an interesting story because I'm bringing back 2019 energy. And this is the last time, 2020 and 2019 and the beginning of 2020, there was more structure to my work. But what people started to fight against is that they didn't really want structure. And they said the only reason the work worked was because there was structure. And that unless they were willing to be very, very in masculine energy, they would never be able to succeed. And whenever I hear feedback like that, something inside me just fights against it. Like, I think I'm a disruptor at nature. There's something about people telling me something can't be done. I contemplated that for a moment. Is it really true that you've got to work hard and push and be in masculine energy and overwork and overpush in order to succeed? And I said, no, I don't think that's the truth. And so I focused on creating something in feminine energetics. And the magic is that I took my business from a few hundreds of thousands of dollars to like $1 million months. A few hundred, it just skyrocketed my life. And this dive into feminine energetics made me realize that the strategy is the least important part. And I went so far away from strategy to prove that. But in my own personal life, I have some strategy, but my feeling now is I want to bring it back. And so the fact that this happened for me in 2019 feels like interesting with the timing. So this is how it happened. I was in Hawaii at the Dole pineapple plantation. Have you ever been there? And at the Dole pineapple plantation, there's a little ride called the Dole Pineapple Express. And the Pineapple Express is like a tiny little train, probably for small children. But Kevin is the equivalent of a small children, except he's 6'5.5". It counts. And anytime there's an opportunity to learn things on a train, Kevin is sitting right there. So his knees were literally shoved up against the seat in front of us because the things are this big, and he's just like sitting in the seat in this, and the thing takes off and it's taking us through the pineapple fields. And while we're in this train, there's this voice coming through the speaker, and I realize this is going to not just be a train tour, it's going to be an instructive train tour with a very excited person that's going to teach us all about pineapples. And Kevin is over the moon. Like we are living the dream for him at this point. And I'm like, well, kind of miss the hotel, but it's okay. This is cute, and he's so happy, and so we're gonna do it. And it didn't take long for me to be fascinated, because very quickly, the automation said this: pineapples take 18 months to grow. Pineapples take 18 months to grow. One pineapple per plant at a time. Did you know that when you pick the first pineapple, you can get a second pineapple plant from that. It'll take about a year, and then the whole thing's uprooted, and then we plant a new crown in its place. And I had this like, oh, moment. I kept thinking about it. More than just having been in the Pineapple Express and someone had just given me this information. I let this information land and I contemplated it, as I ask my clients to do, to contemplate the things I say, not just take them, but actually contemplate them, because we may come up with something far greater than I could have ever said. And so on the drive back from the Dole plantation, with the big Hawaiian mountains and the sunshine beaming down in the Jeep, I wrote this. Pineapples take 18 months to grow, one pineapple per plant at a time. Once it's ready to be picked, the same plant can produce a second pineapple. This one will take up to a year to grow. Once the pineapple plant has birthed 2 pineapples, it's then uprooted and a new crown is planted in its place. It takes longer to create a pineapple than a human baby. In fact, up to twice as long. We often question the timing of the universe. We even give up on our dreams because they don't seem to come to fruition as fast as we believe they should. But what if we chose to trust that everything in our life has a perfectly aligned harvest time? That we cannot see what is growing in the crops beneath us, but magic is happening. That Mother Nature, God, the universe, they have heard us. They received the seed. That the mindset we water our thoughts with and the rays of sun and hope that warm our hearts and dreams are strengthening us and aligning us with the people, the places, and the circumstances we desire. I believe the life we create is an ecosystem. Everything has a place, a purpose. Some things regenerate quicker than others. Some operate on a different timing. If you've been feeling worried that your dreams aren't manifesting as quickly as you desire, please remember that the fruits of your labor are on the way. You planted those seeds however long ago, and golden fruits with crowns are worth being patient for. Pineapple season is coming. Pineapple season is coming has become one of my most helpful phrases in my life, which I feel works with all the archetypes, the badass, the boss, the goddess. Because the thing is, there's a moment in time to plant seeds. And there's a moment in time to tend to our crops. And then there's also a harvest time. The harvest time is gratitude for what is while picking what is. There's a lot of masculine energy in picking and gathering. But if we're in alignment, there's feminine energetics also in the gratitude and the joy of seeing everything that we receive. The planting is doing, but there's got to be a lot of trust that you're doing the thing properly, but you believe that this thing's going to grow, because if not, you plant it and you never look at it again. And the part in the middle is where the most trust is required. The part in the middle where you just keep watering and you keep tending to those crops, even when you can't see, because it's supposed to work. That's where the most feminine energy is required. Masculine energy is also required, because you still got to water the crops. So this is a beautiful balance of masculine and feminine energy. It's this beautiful way of looking at life where it's like, you may plant a lot of things today and there may be nothing to pick. But if you plant for long enough, eventually you get to that point where you're still planting and you've hit that sweet spot where things are being ready to be harvested at the same time. And so maybe today you plant a few and you pick a few. But there's a moment in the middle where you've got to be watering without evidence. And this is where the strength of our souls are created. When you get to the end of your first ever crop, it's harvest time. If most of them didn't make it, that's going to be sad. But if you say the reason none of them made it is because I didn't really believe there was anything growing, so I didn't water them, I didn't tend to the soil, and I didn't make sure everything was okay, then you didn't really learn anything, except for don't do that. You got to trust, you got to imagine, you got to believe that it's going to be a fruitful harvest. Because if you don't believe that, you're not going to tend to the crops properly. You've got to plant trusting and believing that this will soon be the golden fruit with the crown. You've got to water the crops with love and care and trust, believing that every drop of water counts, that every ray of sunshine counts, that everything you do to that soil counts, because pineapple season is coming. If not, when pineapple season comes, you're like, well, I know why this didn't happen. It's because I planted them crooked, because I never believed that they were going to grow in the first place. It's because I never tended to the crops, because I never thought they were going to grow in the first place. So now I've learned. What if you do that every year? Well, I planted them, but I didn't want to be disappointed. So I planted them. I wasn't going to take all of my time to plant them. Can you imagine if I would have taken all that time, nothing would have grown? I mean, yes, I watered them, but not every day. Like there was no reason to believe anything was going to really happen. I did it a few times, and then nothing would change. I would check, the same little sprout was there, and it was like, this isn't a pineapple. So there are days where, yeah, I let it get to me and I didn't water anything. So, okay, next year I'll plant and I'll believe, and I'll water and I'll believe, and hopefully it works. You've got to actually trust in what you're doing. It's such an important piece of the puzzle. Now, if you were to plant the way you think is best with all your intentionality, and you were to water the crops and take care of the soil in the way that you believe is best, and you got to the end of the year and it didn't work out the best, that could happen. Then you'd have to look. We had no rain this year, or we had no sun this year, or we forgot to do this important part. But you wouldn't actually know what didn't work unless you had done everything you knew to do right. Only then could you reach out for support. Only then could you reach out for someone to look at what you've done and say, I know. Because if not, the answer will be the same. Did you plant them properly? Well, did you tend to them properly? Well, then that's why. No, I'm sure there's something else, maybe, but it won't matter. Until you've done this right and this right, the details don't matter. But when you've done this right and this right, the details are everything. And the details are the difference between what works a little bit and what works a lot. This is why you'll see two people do the exact same thing. One person, it works a little bit, the other one skyrockets. It's all in the details. But the details don't matter if the structure isn't there. The details don't matter if you haven't actually done the thing. And so the finish line is about actually looking at, did I do the thing? And if I did do the thing, let's extract the details. Let me learn how to be the greatest pineapple harvester this world has ever seen. And it might be that your job at the finish line is just to be grateful for how much you've harvested. It might be that your job at the finish line is to notice how much you doubted yourself, even though you did everything right. It might be your job at the finish line to see that you did everything in good faith, but you didn't actually know certain things. And what are you going to learn next year? There are so many pieces of this. If we don't give it our full time and attention, another year just passes. This is an opportunity for you to look at all the energetics of your year and be proud of you at the end. So that when we do build a new year on top of this extraordinary year, you've made space for these building blocks to have their place. If you imagine that your life is a beautiful brick mansion, and every year is however many rows of bricks you've taken away from each year. It can't be only if you do everything you were supposed to do by the end of the year, you have a mansion. It's going to have to be the mansion is the work of your lifetime. And how many bricks can you extract, and how much magic can you stack from year to year? And so I want to take you through a masterclass that you can watch with me in real time. You can do it right away with me in the next 3 days. We start tomorrow. We'll 27, 28, 29, and then the Q&A on the 30th. You can do it this way, or you can do them all 3 days in a row on New Year's Eve when you're on your own, or New Year's Day. You can take yourself through this on your own timing. But if you can do it with me in real time, you're going to see something quite magical add up towards the end of the year. It only takes an hour of your time. To extract thoughts to think about, and give yourself the most sturdy, strong platform to springboard into the new year. Instead of bypassing an entire year and getting excited for a new one, having the emotional maturity to sit with what happened this year and say, okay, a lot of it was good. A lot of it requires my attention. I would not be who I am if I didn't make space for this every year. There's just no way. I couldn't plow through the last few days of the year and start again in January if I didn't do what I do here. I would not be the person that I am if it weren't for this sequence. There's so many different parts of you that you may not even be considering at this point as you move into the new year with all your next new goals. And there's going to be an opportunity for that as well, because in my world, I do have an incredible beginning of year program, but I know it doesn't land the same way unless you've closed the year before this way. This is the magic. This is the wisdom. And so excitement for a new year is such a beautiful energy, but it doesn't have much to stand on without the wisdom of the year before. This is the real work that makes the world of a difference. So the next thing I wanted to share with you the last thing I want to share with you is the beliefs about when it's too late. And this is something I've had to fight a lot in my life. The feeling of things are, it's too late. It's too late, and it would be easier to simply just focus on the new thing because it's too late. This is the hardest thing. And so doing the finish line this close to the finish line, you might think, I don't have time for this. But it's not a question of having time, it's a question of making time. You could end this year feeling more proud than you ever have of any other year. This is what I know is available through this Finish Line Masterclass. It's not too late. It's not too close to the end. There are still so many memories you can look through a new lens. There's so many things that you could see differently that would change the outcome of your year. And when that clock strikes midnight, there's a version of you after having done this work. I can't even tell you the beauty. I don't know how to cross a new year without having done this. I'm going on, I think this is going to be my 9th year doing this for myself. And I think the first time we did it was in 2018 for the public. So 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22. This is going to be the 6th one doing it with you guys. And it's out of this world. I want you to know, if you are already in the E3 membership, you don't need to buy this because you're already getting it. So I know often that, and if you're in the Alpha Femme experience, you don't need to buy it either. It's part of your experience. If you're outside of the AFE or the E3 masterclass, and you think this would be a fun thing to do with me, you have 2 choices. You can purchase it for $555, and you'll have it all year until the 1st of December of next year. And you can rewatch it every time you've got a finish line approaching in your life. You can do it like that. Or you can join E3 for $111. You can cancel at any time. If you feel complete after the first month, you can, but there's already other things in there that you can watch. There's an incredible leadership masterclass and the energetics of money masterclasses in there. And so this is $111 per month. So if you decide to join for this one masterclass and you want to stay for another month, you can stay for as many months as you want. If it feels like you're complete after the first month, you get to be complete after the first month. So those are the 2 ways that you can join the Finish Line Masterclass. But we start tomorrow. And I'm really excited. I'm excited for me to actually walk through the end of this year and give you some behind the scenes of how I lead myself this way. I'm excited for you to have a new outlook on this entire year that you've lived. And I'm also excited for the collective experience of doing it this way. Or it's not just about dreams. It's about dreams come true and anchoring in the beauty of what we've done. What's difficult with a life that's constantly moving is that by the time you've achieved the thing you want, there's another desire. One foot in gratitude, one foot in desire. Grateful for what we've done, but already excited for the next thing. This is an opportunity to just sit with gratitude. So that when it's time to sit with desire, you're not out of balance. You've done so good already this year. And if you give yourself the time to experience that, it's going to be an extraordinary feeling for you. So, as I said before, you can watch this live with me. It's going to be tomorrow, the 23rd, tomorrow, the 28th and the 29th, so 27, 28, 29, the Q&A on the 30th. And there's going to be the replays. So in E3, you'll have the replays for 3 months. And if you purchase it, it'll be in an external group for you to have until December 1st of next year. So the replays are going to be available. If you can't watch them live, that's not a problem at all. And if the Alpha team wouldn't mind putting the link, because I think that would be helpful at this point, if the Alpha team would just put the link in the comment section, when you click on the finish line, you'll see it. And then when you go to check out, you'll have the two options. It'll say either buy it for $555 and have it till December, or just join E3 for $111. And that will be taken out every month. And so if you decide you don't want to stay, you just make sure to message the Alpha team, say, I'm done with E3, and they'll stop it for you. There's a beautiful sadness that comes with the end of a year sometimes. It's like a wishing there was a little bit more time, a grateful feeling for what's past, sometimes disappointment for things that didn't quite happen the way we wanted them to, pain and grieving for things that didn't happen at all. Those things matter. And if we just bypass those at the end of the year, just for a sparkly new beginning, they catch up with us, usually after a month or two of the new year, once the magic has subsided and we're left with the same ways of being we had the year before. The year just starts to feel the same again. And so I'd love to walk with you in a year that changes everything. And like the song says, every new beginning is some other beginning's end. So it was 5 minutes ago that this was the beginning of 2022. And now we're closing it. And the closing of it matters as much as the living it matters as much as the starting it. We can't just start things and live them and then quit and expect to feel confident in our ability to cross finish lines in our lives. Every single actual goal that you have comes with a finish line, comes with a crossing point where you get to say, I did it. If you have an aversion to finish lines, it'll be the story of how you almost did it. And a lot of people live their entire life that way. Every year they almost, and they laugh about it. And they make a list for next year. What if you actually did the things that you wanted to do? I'm so blown away in my own life with what I've been able to do, with sitting with what hasn't really worked out and sitting with what actually worked and deciding to build on top of that instead of just start over again. The wisdom is expedited. The wisdom is exponential. It's beyond what I thought it could be. But this is a pivotal piece of the puzzle. And so I would love to have you on this journey with me. Regardless of what comes next, my hope for you is that you experience yourself fully through the finish line. There's so much more I want to say, but it's got to be in those 3 days. So this is one thing to know about me. If this is the first time you've entered my world, I do have a very energetic forward brand. What this means is I don't really rely much on logical thought. For some people, that's perfect. For some people, that's not. I know I'm not the only person in the world to be this way because my business is this way, but I also know it's not right for everybody. And so when you're listening to this, if you're like, I would need to know what's included every day in order to make this decision, it's probably not the right fit. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm sure there are so many other mentors that are creating opportunities like this. The way I like to present my work is more like, if you know this is the kind of journey you want to sit with and you want to walk with, then this is what we're going to do. We're going to open up how the purely masculine energy, the purely feminine energy, and the balanced energies of our lives experience finish lines. And the goal of this is so that you can contemplate and journal and have introspective thought with yourself to come up with your own decision of how you want to grow and be in your life. Now, this is a discussion that you can say, okay, this person has used this method to create certain results that I think are awesome. I like the way this person thinks. I like the way this person expresses themselves. And I think I'd like to be there in order to contemplate life with Melanie. If that's how you feel, and it's not about the details, it's about the feeling, the energy, the like, I know I'm supposed to be there, then that's what it is. If you have questions, you can ask the Alpha Femme team. But usually if I haven't mentioned it, it's because it's to be discovered inside of the program. I speak. I'm a speaker. I'm a storyteller. I'm a mentor. And so the idea is to come to get what's there and to trust yourself that you can take what's there and make something greater from it, because that's who you are. If that's who you are, this is going to blow you away beyond. It's the kind of thoughts you're going to be so diving into, the kind of things you'll be able to sit with your partner and have late discussions that keep you up talking. It's going to be the kind of thing where you find yourself excited to be thinking about life again. Like, this isn't just come and learn. It's come and think, come and feel. Come and push the envelope a little bit of how you've ever shut a year down and see who you might become in that process of giving yourself time, giving yourself attention, giving yourself the opportunity to close this year powerfully. That's what this is about. The same way you wouldn't go to a movie theater and ask for the breakdown of the movie, the same way you wouldn't go to a magic show and ask for the breakdown of all the tricks, the same way you wouldn't go to a comedy show and ask for the breakdown and all the jokes. In my work, it's the same feeling, except it's not just about to laugh. It's about to change your way of being, and you know if this is right for you or not. So I want to thank you for taking the time to sit with me tonight and giving me the opportunity to connect with you through this live stream. Again, if you feel someone needs to hear some of the pieces of this, like it would be beneficial to someone, you can also just tag them in the video. I'm probably going to be posting this to Instagram as well, so you can share the Instagram version, whatever feels aligned for you. But I've built my entire business from people sharing that felt like, I have a feeling this person would do good, and then the right people clicking on the video. That's how I built this entire thing. And so I want to leave you with one last part. If you're an entrepreneur in business, it feels like 5 days, because that's about what we've got left, 5-6 days to this year, is not a lot of time. But what I've found over the last few years is that 5 days can entirely change my world. Over the course of 5 days, I've changed my financial situation in a month in a way that doesn't make sense. We've had $1 million days, $1 million weeks. 5 days can change relationships in my life where we're not okay on day 1 and by day 5 we're okay, or we're okay on day 1 and by day 5 we're not. In 5 days, I've created entire programs. In 5 days, I've met people who've binge watched every single thing I've ever created and bought by the 5th day. 5 days is an eternity in the online space because there's no linear time. You leave a digital footprint in the sands of time and people find it on their aligned timing, and they get to do as much or as little as they want, as fast or as slow as is aligned to them. And that's a big piece of this finish line, is I want to help you believe that things can happen through the finish line, not just the way you think they can happen, on a bigger scale than that. And the only way I can be so certain in what I'm telling you is because I've literally seen it for myself, for my clients, for my family, for my friends, for the people who join my free masterclasses. This is a repeatable experience. When we believe something different about the finish line is different. And for a lot of us around this time, we just think, let's just get through the end of this and then we'll start again next year. But what if we believed the magic of this year is in the next few days? There is more gold in the next few days coming up than I've ever taken the time to notice. And as that changes for me, the finish line for me will change forever in every circumstance. Like, imagine if we had that belief. How might we show up in our launches, when it's time for our birthday, a few days before our birthday? How would we show up at the finish line of when we're moving a house, or the last few days of a vacation, or the last few days of, how might we squeeze every last drop if we could make this a repeatable process? So just some things to ponder. And I hope I have an opportunity to work with you closer. And in the meantime, I'll see you on the internet. Thank you so much for being here, and have a good night.